From Lagos, the nation's commercial capital, this is the News at 10. Live from Channels Television. Reporting tonight, Millicent Walker.
Hello and welcome. Tonight, it's freedom at last for remaining 23 hostages of the Abuja-Kaduna train attack. The victims are going through a medical evaluation after spending over 190 days in captivity. Appeal court sitting in Abuja recommends out-of-court settlement between federal government and the Academic Staff Union of Universities on the union's ongoing strike. And politics is our focus tonight as we continue our series of reports assessing government's performance on Nigeria's 62nd anniversary.
On business news tonight, Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries and allies agreed to cut oil output by 2 million barrels per day amid weak global economy.
On sports news tonight, all is set for Nigeria's Super Falcons in Japan tonight at Shiko International Friendly match in Kobe on Thursday night.
And from the nation's capital, House of Representatives demands improved remuneration for teachers as the world celebrates World Teachers' Day.
And in international news from London, Russia says it will recapture areas of annexed territory that fell to a Ukrainian advance.
And we begin with some good news as the last set of the hostages taken by terrorists in the Abuja-Kaduna train attack have now regained their freedom. The victims were freed after more than 190 days in captivity. According to a member of the Chief of Defense Staff Action Committee, Dr. Abdul Malik Atta, the 23 victims were released at about 4 p.m. today. He also accuses Tukur Mamu of thwarting the efforts of the federal government's committee to secure the release of the victims. Dr. Atta spoke to us earlier today.
It's been 6 months, 1 week, and alhamdulillah, it's all come to an end thanks to the support from the federal government through the office of the Chief of Defense Staff. We were able today to go into the bush and bring back the remaining 23 families, finally. Not through our making, but because of somebody that betrayed the committee and the government. That's the person of Tukur Mamu, who did everything within his reach to thwart the efforts the government has put in place, all in his interest. As you all know, he's in the hands of the government now. But alhamdulillah, all the family members are back. The bandits never asked for money at the issue, but he put money issue into the whole thing and derailed the process and kept everybody for the past 6 months. We just parted away with about $200,000.
To other stories, this time party politics. The National Working Committee of the People's Democratic Party says it will appeal an Abeokuta Federal High Court judgment ordering fresh primaries to nominate candidates in Ogun State for the 2023 general elections. Justice Oluremi Oguntoyibo on September 27 this year directed the PDP Ogun State executives to conduct fresh primaries to nominate candidates for the House of Assembly, House of Representatives, senatorial and governorship elections within 14 days. The PDP National Working Committee explains in a statement by its publicity secretary that after a review and consultations with party leaders and critical stakeholders in Ogun State, the NWC has resolved to appeal the judgment. It has directed the National Legal Advisor of the party to commence all actions necessary to appeal the judgment. For the presidential flag bearer of the People's Democratic Party, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, the Northeast will be given visible attention if the party wins the election come 2023. Some of the areas needing attention including bringing to an end insecurity, restoring agriculture, reviving the railway transportation in the region, and completing the Mambila hydropower project. He was speaking today during conversations with party supporters in Bauchi State.
First of all, I will make sure that the insecurity that is in the Northeast sub-region is addressed. Secondly, the Mambila hydroelectric power station has been on the drawing board for 50 years. No government has summoned the courage to execute this project. If PDP is elected and I come to be the president, I pledge and promise you Mambila hydroelectric power station will be a reality. Three, I will restore our agricultural potentials in this sub-region. We have the best soil in this country, and therefore most of our people are engaged in agriculture. I promise and pledge that if PDP is elected, we will restore our agricultural potentials.
Well, for the All Progressives Congress, the challenge before it is to resolve the disagreement over the released campaign council list, which some members feel alienated from. Today, the national chairman of the party, Senator Abdullahi Adamu, met with 6 governors of the party, former national chairman Adams Oshiomhole, and some other National Working Committee members at the National Secretariat of the party over the list. He spoke to journalists afterwards.
That we are together on this, on the same page, with the Governors Forum, same page with the campaign office now, and the National Working Committee. I believe this meeting that we've had is more than useful for all of us. For us, nothing short of victory is good enough for us. And the spirit of today's meeting underlines that fact.
When do you expect the commencement of campaign?
That's why you wait. Don't be faster than the
Nigerians want to know.
Maybe Nigerians want to know. Well, whatever, no matter how much in a hurry you may be, the fact of the matter is, we are the party. As APC, we will determine when we do what, as long as it's within the framework of INEC's guideline.
Meanwhile, APC women in the southeast of the country mobilized themselves today as they organized a rally endorsing the candidacy of Chief Bola Ahmed Tinubu and Senator Kashim Shettima, the party's presidential flag bearer and vice presidential candidates, respectively. The women gathered in their large numbers at the Ndubisi Kanu Square in Owerri, the Imo State capital.
The women in their numbers and colorful attire gather at the Ndubisi Kanu Square in Owerri, the Imo State capital, southeast Nigeria, for an endorsement rally for APC presidential candidate Bola Tinubu and his running mate Kashim Shettima. After another, the women take their turn to address the crowd, urging the women to use their PVC right and vote for the candidate of the APC in the forthcoming presidential election.
On that day, from beginning to the end, we are going to vote for APC candidates. Our presidential candidate, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, he has done well in Lagos State. What we are saying is that Ahmed know who he is.
The Southeast Women Coordinator for the APC presidential campaign and wife of the Imo State Governor, Chioma Uzodinma, says the rally is a preamble of what's to come as the presidential campaign progresses.
This event is a preamble or a sneak peek into what is to come as we progress in the course of our campaign.
Then the women move through the streets of Owerri before arriving at the government house. Addressing the women, Governor Hope Uzodinma says the APC remains the party to beat in the forthcoming elections, especially with the choice of its presidential candidate.
APC is one united national political party in Nigeria, and we are all committed to APC, and we are all working for APC. And we believe that what is happening in Lagos should happen in Nigeria.
As the 2023 general elections draws nearer, rallies and campaigns like this one will be held in different parts of the country while the parties taking part in the election, all in a bid to woo the electorates to support and vote for their preferred candidates.
The political class wields a lot of influence in shaping up policies that influence the pattern of governance in the country. And as Nigeria turns 62, we beam our searchlight on the political class and the roles that they have played in the administration of the country in the last few years. Our political correspondent, Benga Ashiru, in our next report reviews the political activities as Nigeria marks 62.
The wave of anxiety and uncertainty that heralded the political transition to the current dispensation led by President Muhammadu Buhari in 2015 was an unprecedented ovation that clamors for a change to a new order. And the All Progressives Congress rode gallantly to power on the crest of that promise. A promise of change from a very daunting reality that threatens the nation's unity and journey to nationhood.
As we continue to de-escalate the security challenges that confronted us at the inception of this administration, newer forms alien to our country began to manifest, especially in the areas of kidnappings, molestation, killings of innocent citizens, banditry, all of which are being addressed by our security forces.
While the challenges trumped and trampled malignantly, drifting the nations on a precipice, President Muhammadu Buhari was expected to hit the ground running, but in what later turned out his approach to governance, President Muhammadu Buhari remained set in his ways, deferring to a slow but methodical approach. Perhaps the problem was much more than meets the eye. Not later did many came to the realization that the 1999 draft constitution was highly defective, which very little of sustainable progress could be made.
It is the firm contention of Afenifere that 1999 constitution is a fraud.
In the days to come, the clamor for conference of ethnic nationalities, return to regional structure, quest for creation of true federating units, devolution of powers, and adoption of the 2014 National Confab White Paper Report took the center stage of national discourse. The reality of the debate made little appreciable progress, as the Buhari government would rather defer to the National Assembly on constitutional matters.
What we have is a monopoly democracy. We have monopoly democracies because the political class act like monopolies.
As far as legislative process is concerned, the constitution is clear. Clear in the sense that it is the responsibility of the National Assembly to legislate.
Like a passage of time, the political calendar opened a new horizon for the 2023 general elections and the task of delivering a credible poll. The existing Electoral Act needed an urgent amendment if that objective was to be realized. After an unrelenting agitation by the civil society organizations, the president finally yielded to his initial promise as he has sent the 2021 electoral bill, signaling a major milestone in the nation's democratic journey.
After that, we'll be taking the national anthem, please.
The bill, like the president said, and I completely agree with him, will mark a turnaround in our electoral process if implemented to the latter.
If we are able to conduct this election peacefully and they accept their defeat, or their other people accept if they win, then we will have peace and then we'll have democracy.
With the political atmosphere getting turned up with intensive campaigns, is there the political will, enough mandates and resources to make a difference come 2023 general elections? A deep reflection that keeps our watchful eyes on a video call as the nation stands at the threshold of another political renaissance. Benga Ashuru, Channels Television News.
In part two, after the break, we'll continue with our anniversary series as we're being joined by a professor of political science on Nigeria's political journey. That's in a moment. Please stay with us. Welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television. A reminder of our top stories. It's freedom at last for the remaining 23 hostages of the Abuja-Kaduna train attack. The victims' survivors are going through medical evaluation after spending over 190 days in captivity. Appeal court sitting in Abuja recommends out-of-court settlement between federal government and the Academic Staff Union of Universities. Politics is our focus tonight as we continue our series of reports assessing government's performance on Nigeria's 62nd anniversary. And Russia says it will recapture areas of annexed territory that fell back into Ukrainian control. Teachers Day, and we'll have those reports shortly. But joining me right now on the news at 10 is Professor Judicial Adibe, head of the Department of Political Science, Nasarawa State University. He joins me now virtually. Welcome, Prof. Thank you for joining me on the news at 10.
Yeah, thank you very much. First of all, let me say that I'm not the head of the Department of Political Science at Nasarawa State University. I'm not.
Professor, I mean, you followed political activities over the years in the country. What would you say politicians must do differently to put us on the path of recovery?
Do you mean what the current political actors are likely to do? I didn't get your question properly.
Well, perhaps let's start with this administration. This is our series, Nigeria at 62. So we're pretty much looking at politics now. What have you witnessed? What have you observed as to how politics has been played, perhaps in the last 7 years?
Well, a lot of things have happened in the last 7 years. Let me address one of the common mantras. It is very common now for people to say we've never been as divided as before since the end of the Civil War. I think people are taking it to be very axiomatic, but I think it is not evidence-based. There are two things I will say about that. If, for example, you look at the current political campaigns and compare them with what happened in 1979, you can see that in 1979, the UPN led by the late Chief Awolowo and the MPP led by the late Azikiwe, they all got more than 80% of the votes in their respective domains. And the most optimistic projections in the current campaign is not putting either Peter Obi or Tinubu from the southwest or Peter Obi from the southeast to get more than 60%. So something has shifted. But I do agree with, again, another thing that is happening is that we are emerging, we are what people call a transitional democracy. In transitional democracies, these are societies that are emerging from a prolonged period of authoritarianism. So you have a lot of bottled up feelings which are unleashed onto the political space. And because these are unleashed onto the political space, in the short to medium terms, they have a tendency of aggravating the structures of conflict in the society. This is probably what we are witnessing now, rather than the tendency to say that we've never been as divided as before. Yes, the president has done a lot of things. There is no government, even if there is no government at all. By the law of unintended consequence, some things will have been done well. For example, it has done relatively well in terms of leaving its infrastructure footprints across the country. It has also done relatively well in using personal diplomacy to secure international good positions for Nigerians in respected international institutions like World Trade Organization, African Development Bank, Afri-Exim Bank, being the Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations. The government has done well there. However, in terms of managing diversity, I'm not sure the president has done, he could do better than he has done. And that's the reason why some people are saying that we've not been as divided as before. We've always had problems in our nation building process. The president has not been able to reverse that. But as I said, I'm not sure it is evidence-based to say that we've never been as divided as before. There is a new phenomenon in the political space we noticed in the campaign. This is a number of young people, you know, not always properly organized, trying to campaign, you know, turn their frustration and project their expectations and hopes on P2B. They call themselves obedience. So in many ways, that has helped this current regime, in my own opinion, because given the level of frustrations, if they don't have an entity they are able to project their hope and turn into a messiah, they probably will be going on street revolution. So a number of things are happening. We see how these things are panning out. The established politicians are still, you know, hoping on the old tricks. Will it work this time around? We don't know. Will the new phenomenon we are witnessing now, you know, concurrent rallies in several cities, self-funded for the first time in our political history, will they translate into victory? Nobody can know. This is what we call the fog of war. There are several intervening variables we never know that will emerge and which will become the game changer. But we are watching. And another thing that I also observed is that despite all these things, as I said, there's a lot of optimism, underlying optimism that despite the current challenges, Nigeria will get it right at a point.
And Prof, it looks as if you've answered even the questions that I wanted to ask, and there isn't much time. The lecturer that you are and Professor, I would like to thank you for coming on the News at 10. Apologies, I think I addressed you wrongly at the beginning. I didn't really hear your response at the time. Thank you so much. And Prof has been joining us from our Abuja studio. Thanks once again.
Thank you.
Still on politics, as we take you back to the presidential flag bearer of the People's Democratic Party, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, who said the Northeast will be given visible attention if the party wins the election come 2023.
First of all, I will make sure that the insecurity that is in the northeast sub-region is addressed. Secondly, the Mambila hydroelectric power station has been on the drawing board for 50 years. For 50 years. No government has summoned the courage to execute this project. If PDP is elected and I come to be the president, I pledge and promise you Mambila hydroelectric power station will be a reality. I will restore our agricultural potentials in this sub-region. We have the best soil in this country, and therefore most of our people are engaged in agriculture. I promise and pledge that if PDP is elected, we will restore our agricultural potentials.
State judiciaries have agreed that there is a need for the establishment of a small claims court in all states to urgently address the speed of adjudication, particularly on financial claims, and to reduce the sockets of the high courts on simple commercial disputes. Well, this decision was echoed today at a peer-to-peer learning session for all state judiciaries organized by the Presidential Enabling Business Environment Council, PEBEC. The event is one of the direct interventions of PEBEC at the sub-national level. Our judiciary correspondent Shola Shieli reports.
The peer-to-peer learning session for all state judiciaries on small claims courts was attended by judges, magistrates, lawyers, judicial staff workers, and key stakeholders interested in the quick dispensation of justice, particularly on financial claims, and to reduce the growing caseload of simple commercial disputes. The learning session is an initiative of the Presidential Enabling Business Environment Council, PEBEC, and the Special Advisor to the President on the ease of doing business explains why.
All financial claims of 5 million naira and below are heard at small claims courts. These courts provide easy access as well as inexpensive and speedy resolution for debt and liquidated money recovery disputes.
The Lagos State Judiciary was the first to start the small claims court in Nigeria in 2018, and representatives of the court led by the Chief Judge are here to share their experiences and its impact on the state.
The performance report on the small claims court in the first year of its operation, which is displayed on the Lagos State Judiciary JIS, that is Judiciary Information System website, shows a good start. In other words, over 60% of the cases filed were concluded and judgments delivered within the 60-day time frame prescribed by the practice directions.
Participants at the training session here speak about their key takeaways and action points going forward.
This training came at the nick of time because by the time we get back, all we need to do is training for those magistrates that have been so designated.
We know that businesses cannot thrive if little commercial cases or small claims can be in court for donkey years.
I can see a lot of advantages of having a small claim court, and I'm going to back to my state to let them know how we can make sure that it is being set up as fast as possible.
The amount of representation in today's peer-to-peer event, it shows the seriousness with which the judiciary in Nigeria across the states has taken this intervention to deliver this for the Nigerian business environment.
With a consensus from the state's judiciaries, the expectation is that the participants will implement all they learned here, champion the establishment and operations of small claims courts across the country, with the resultant effect of quick dispensation of justice to assist MSMEs in their commercial activities.
Still ahead on the news at 10. Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries and its allies agreed to cut output by 2 million barrels per day. That's on Business News. You join us again. Welcome back, and let's take you to Abuja for more stories. Here's Gloria Mezoke. Hi, Gloria. Hello, Millicent. Good to see you. Well, starting off with the judiciary, the Court of Appeal in Abuja today made a giant leap in resolving the face-off between ASUU and the federal government as it advises both parties to settle out of court. The National Industrial Court had ordered the Academic Staff Union of Universities to return to the class, but the ruling was appealed by ASUU. ASUU had maintained that Justice Polycarp Hammond erred in law when he decided to hear and determine the motion for an interlocutory injunction when he knew or ought to have known that the substantive suit was not initiated by due process of law.
The lead counsel to the federal government, Mr. James Igwe, and that of the Academic Staff Union of Universities, Mr. Femi Falana, are in court as the three-man panel, led by Justice Hammond Barka, begins hearing on the appeal filed by the university lecturers last month. But members of ASUU are not in court, a development that made the presiding Justice Hammer to ask if the counsels have any objections to continuing with the hearing in their absence. In a similar vein, Justice George Will Biobele, who is one of the three-man panel, asked if the counsels are also comfortable with him being part of the panel, owing to his relationship with someone in the university system. In the absence of any objection by the counsels, the court begins with the hearing. Before parties could argue their case, the panel advised the counsels to meet with their clients and try to have an out-of-court settlement because of national interest, an appeal that the counsels agreed to.
Yeah, what the court has said that we can talk. We can also come back tomorrow to proceed with the matter upon a report of what has happened. And we hope parties will be able to reach a position that will ensure that the universities are opened immediately. Students need to go back to school.
As far as the ASUU is concerned, the government can call off this strike today by doing the needful, by showing commitment towards the implementation of agreements that have been signed. But on the part of my clients, on the part of ASUU, we are going to reach out to them as advised by the government to ensure that on the part of lawyers consulting our clients, we can come back here tomorrow.
University lecturers have been on strike since February this year. Several efforts to resolve the impasse and return the lecturers to the classrooms have failed, including the judgment of the National Industrial Court, which the lecturers are challenging in the Court of Appeal.
It is World Teachers' Day, a day set aside to celebrate men and women in the teaching profession. For National Assembly members, beyond asking teachers to be rewarded in heaven, the authorities must endeavor to improve the remuneration of teachers in the country, and this must be backed by the legislation. Our National Assembly correspondent, Terry Ikumi, reports.
About an hour into Tuesday's plenary in the House of Representatives, a member, via a point of order on personal explanation, draws the attention of his colleagues to the World Teachers' Day.
For the House to recognize people that have made us who we are, and at the same time building the next generation. So I seek the leave of the House that if we can suspend our relevant rules so that I come on personal explanation on this very issue, sir.
A matter of this importance and magnitude should not just come by way of personal explanation. I think, Mr. Speaker, I would like to, by the leave of the chair and the honorable members, to let us suspend our rules and take Bago's matter as a matter, substantive matter, by way of a motion, make prayers, and now discuss it exhaustively.
You know, we're in election year, and many people would like to come back with issues to gain attention, which I believe Bagos is trying to use this platform to get that attention.
We gave honor to some teachers who distinguished themselves in their field. Today, Bagos is bringing that. So it has nothing to do with Bagos trying to achieve political relevance.
The Speaker rules that the matter can be debated.
We will discuss it, because we are trying to honor the teachers. There's no debate there. So we will discuss it thoroughly.
I want to urge us today that the budget we are going to receive from Mr. President in a couple of days, that we devote enough percentage for teachers and enough percentage for development of education system in Nigeria.
There's a scheme going on by the federal government, housing scheme, across Nigeria, across the country, that teachers should be deliberately given some slots, and the committee on schools, on education, that they should create housing for them, sir, that they should create 70%.
And what are the odds of having a member of the House sharing the same chamber with his secondary school teacher?
He taught me agricultural science in my SS1.
Who?
Please raise up. Mala Ado Sanikiri.
He taught you?
Yes, he taught me in secondary school.
The debate ends with a minute of silence for teachers who have passed on.
May the souls of our teachers who are not here with us today rest in peace.
Terry Ikumi, Channels Television News.
The Lagos State Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu says his administration is committed to continuous investment in the education sector through the use of technology that will improve the performance of teachers and students. Governor Sanwo-Olu made this comment at the 2022 World Teachers' Day celebration hosted by the state branch of the Nigeria Union of Teachers in Alausa, Ikeja. He also assures the teachers of regular training to make them compete with their peers across the globe. The Senate has approved 437 naira to $1 as the exchange rate for the 2023 financial year, a measure the Senate Committee on Finance says is meant to protect the naira as it approved the 2023 to 2025 medium-term expenditure framework, fiscal policy and fiscal paper. The Senate also approved $73 per barrel of crude oil for 2023, 3.3 trillion naira for fuel subsidy, 17.16 inflation rate, and 3.75% GDP growth rate. The Federal Executive Council held its usual meeting and discussed the 2023 appropriation bill to be presented by the President to the joint session of the National Assembly on Friday. The Council meeting also discussed the 2023 to 2025 fiscal framework expenditure profile, capital and aggregate expenditure, overhead cost, among other issues. The President's advisor on media and publicity, Mr. Adeshino, explains that this is the last budget under this administration. Well, that's it from the nation's capital. It's back to you, Millicent. Thanks, Gloria. And just before business news, let's bring you this story. The lawyer to the chairman of Xenox Group, Mr. Liu AK, has debunked online publications against him over an alleged 170 million naira contract fraud. A press release signed by a senior advocate of Nigeria, Matthew Booker, describes the publications as containing false, distorted and damaging content. The lawyer says after reviewing all the court documents, the record shows that investigation reports by the Nigerian Police Force, the Special Fraud Unit and the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission indicates that Mr. Lee Stan AK and Xenox Technologies Limited are not connected in any way to the allegations that formed the basis of the damaging online publications. According to the press release, the investigations by the Nigerian Police and the EFCC, Mr. Leo Stan AK Technology Distributions Limited and its staff, Mrs. Chioma AK, Mr. Chris Ezio Sims, Mrs. Folashade Oyebode, and Mr. Charles Adigwe have been formally and severally vindicated and absolved of any wrongdoing as the entire allegations were found to be false. On the contrary, the lawyers say the mastermind of all the allegations is presently standing trial in court for forwarding the false allegations which were referenced in the damaging publications to the federal government of Nigeria. That charge is, however, still pending in court. It's time for business now. Here's Anne Wilder.
Banking, so easy, so simple. Dial *894# now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
Thank you, Millicent. Hello and welcome to Business News. The Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries and allies, OPEC Plus, have agreed to cut oil output by 2 million barrels per day, and that's its biggest reduction to oil production since the 2020 COVID-19 pandemic. OPEC Plus, who made this decision during an in-person meeting in Vienna, says that the cuts of 2 million barrels per day will be measured against the same baseline as the previous OPEC Plus agreement. Meanwhile, several member countries are already pumping well below their quotas and may not have to reduce production. One of Nigeria's leading power generation companies, Gregu Power, has listed by introduction its shares on the main board of the Nigerian Exchange Limited, becoming the first Genco in the country to be quoted on the NGX. In a statement released today, the company says that it listed a total of 2.5 billion ordinary shares at 100 naira per share under the utility sector and electric power generation subsector of the exchange. According to the company's board chairman, Mr. Femi Otedola, the development will ensure that the long-term growth of the company is assured and its benefits passed to its shareholders. Meanwhile, the executive officer, NGX, Mr. Temi Bukola, has commended the company's listing, saying that he expects it will encourage other power generation and distribution companies to list their shares on the exchange. Gregu's share price on the NGX jumped 10% to close at 110 naira in today's trading session. And talking about today's trading session, it has closed the second trading day in the week in the red, despite big moves on Gregu Power. Laddie Williams has the details.
Hello and welcome to the Stock Market Report. Well, the loss we saw yesterday continued into today's trading session there. The bear there hanging on right to the market. Let's look at the all-share index. It's not by a big margin today, though. It's down 0.09%. The all-share index there sitting at 48,836 points. And the market cap, though, we see a big move in the market cap there, thanks to Gregu Power PLC there, adding to the market cap there. 8.5 million units of stocks were traded today, valued at 110 naira per share. Activity chart there, 135 million units of stocks traded, valued at 2.21 billion naira. And we see deals there, 4,041, all in the red today. Let's look at the top gainers list there. We see Gregu Power PLC topping that counter to close at 110 naira per share, up 10% on its first trading day. Multiverse there, up 9.88%. Red Star Express at 2 naira 32 kobo, up 9.43%. Well, we saw a lot of sell pressure with stocks like Access Score and most of the Fugas, and that's why we see that pressure on the market today. We're interested to see how the market plays out tomorrow and how Gregu actually trades on the market. And that's the Stock Market Report. I'm Laddie Williams. It's back to you.
Well, let's see how other markets around the world fared at the close of business. News tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Anne Nwawadu. The rest of News at 10 continues now with Millicent.
Banking, so easy, so simple. Dial *894# now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
Thank you, Anne. Russia's President Vladimir Putin says he expects the situation to stabilize in Ukrainian regions illegally annexed by the Kremlin. His comments come after Ukraine said it made gains in the regions, reclaiming key sites that Russia has vowed to retake in the lost territory. Simon Pusey has more on this and other international news and around the world in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. Russia says it will recapture areas of annexed territory that fell to a Ukrainian advance. A Kremlin spokesman said they will be with Russia forever. They will be returned. It's after President Putin signed laws formalizing the annexation in defiance of international law. Ukraine says its forces have advanced in all 4 of the annexed regions, Kherson, Kharkiv, Luhansk and Donetsk. President Volodymyr Zelensky said his troops are making rapid progress, especially in Kherson. A new video posted online appears to show schoolgirls heckling a member of Iran's feared paramilitary Basij force after anti-government protests swept the country spread to the classroom. The teenagers here waving their headscarves in the air and shouting "Get lost, Basiji" at the man who was asked to address them. The Basij has helped security forces crack down on the protests sparked by the death in custody of a young woman.
For freedom.
Meanwhile, leading French actresses and singers have posted videos of them cutting their hair in protest, while this Swedish MEP also stood in solidarity with anti-government demonstrators.
Until the women of Iran are free, we are going to stand with you. Jian, Jian, Azadi, women, life, freedom.
The news sparked protests across the country and around the world. Women here marching down a street in the Kurdish town of Sakez yesterday. A trial has opened over a 2013 train accident in Spain that killed 80 passengers and injured 145. Prosecutors are seeking 4-year prison sentences for the train driver and for a former security director at rail infrastructure company ADIF. In July of 2013, a long-distance train derailed and crashed against a concrete wall near the northwestern city of Santiago de Compostela. The investigation showed the train was travelling at 179 kilometres an hour on a stretch with an 80 kilometres per hour speed limit. It was also revealed that the driver was answering a phone call from the conductor moments before the accident. At least 25 people have been killed after a bus carrying a wedding party fell into a 500-metre deep gorge in India's northern Pauri town of Uttarakhand. Uttarakhand's Chief Minister Pushkar Singh Dhami visited the accident site and spoke with relief workers. The Director General of Police said rescue operations went on for the entire night. 20 people were rescued and hospitalised, with several in critical condition. India has the world's deadliest roads, the result of a flood of untrained drivers, inadequate law enforcement and badly maintained highways. Liz Truss's first speech as leader at the Conservative Party conference was momentarily disrupted today by protesters.
I promised on entering Downing Street to act.
Environmental demonstrators held a banner reading "Who voted for this?" before they were thrown out. Later, Liz Truss used her set-piece speech to explain why she thinks the disruption caused by her economic policies will be worth it. The Prime Minister claimed everyone will benefit from the economic growth produced by her tax-cutting plan.
We need to step up. As the last few weeks have shown, it will be difficult. Whenever there's change, there is disruption. And not everybody will be in favour of change, but everyone will benefit from the result.
And finally, Angelina Jolie has filed court papers accusing ex-husband Brad Pitt of drunkenly attacking her and their children during a private plane flight, prompting her to file for divorce. In a lawsuit over a French winery that the stars bought together, Miss Jolie says Mr. Pitt grabbed her by the head and attacked 2 of their children on the 2016 trip. Mr. Pitt is also accused of verbal abuse and of pouring alcohol on his family during the flight from France to Los Angeles. He denies the allegations. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel studios in Lagos.
Many thanks, Simon. Welcome to Sports News Night. I'm African champions. The Super Falcons of Nigeria is set for tomorrow's international friendly against host Japan in Kobe. Already 19 of the invited 23 players had a feel of the Novir Stadium, venue of the game tomorrow against the Nadeshiko. But both teams have clashed only once at the competitive level at the 2004 Olympic Women's Football Tournament, with Japan beating the Falcons 1-0 at the Karaiskakis Stadium in 2004 in Peru. In UEFA Champions League football, Chelsea this evening climbed back into contention for a place in the last 16 with an emphatic 3-0 victory against AC in Milan at Stamford Bridge. Real Madrid established a stranglehold at the top of their group with a 2-1 win over Shakhtar. Erling Haaland only needed 45 minutes to add 2 more goals to a remarkable start to his Manchester City career as they won Copenhagen by 5 goals to 0. PSG were forced to settle for a 1-1 draw away to Benfica, while Juve got off the mark in the Champions League with a 3-1 win over Maccabi Haifa. FC Salzburg beat Dinamo Zagreb 1-0, while RB Leipzig beat Celtic by 3 goals to 1. Ukraine's Football Federation President Andriy Pavelko says football can be used to come back to normal life and to finish the war after his country joined Spain and Portugal in their bid to host the 2030 FIFA World Cup. The presidents of the Spanish Football Federation and the Portuguese Football Federation say the decision had the full support of European soccer governing body UEFA and also of the Spanish, Portuguese and Ukrainian governments. The Spain, Portugal and Ukraine bid for the 2030 tournament will compete against other candidacies such as a collaboration between Egypt, Greece and Saudi Arabia and a joint South American proposal from Uruguay, Argentina, Paraguay and Chile. Novak Djokovic has brushed aside Chile's Cristian Garin 6-1, 6-1 in 64 minutes earlier today as he breezed into the second round of the Astana Open. Coming off his 89th career title in Tel Aviv last weekend, Djokovic broke and overmatched Garin 5 times to continue his push for a place in the season-ending ATP Finals. Well, the Serb is the only player to win ATP tournaments on clay, grass and hard courts this year. And that's Sports News. I'm Ayotunde Balogun. Back to you, Millicent.
And the main news again. Terrorists have freed the last of the victims of the Abuja-Kaduna train attack following intervention by the Chief of Defense Staff Action Committee. The committee took custody of the victims around 4 p.m. today and blamed Tukur Mamu for the delay encountered by the federal government in securing their release. That's news at 10 tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Millicent Walker. Have a good night and stay safe.